welcome back. Now let's go back to the year 1999, and of course, Paul Harrigan joined our team as a sports presenter as part of his segment, "The Word from the Chief," and also it was the last time that the Newcastle AFL competition existed, as it formed under the name Black Diamond AFL the following year, and plus it was also the last season with the Newcastle Breakers. The Wildfires desperately had to do everything, both on and off the field, that is.
That last passage.
After a victorious performance, the Wildfires had to fire back. Still onto rugby union, and in the Newcastle competition, the Wanderers are up against East, while Maitland are up against University. Singleton will take on Hamilton, while the Waratahs are up against Merewether. Meanwhile, in the Newcastle Rugby League, Curry is up against Macquarie on Saturday, while on Sunday, West are up against Waratah Mayfield, while Central is up against North Nelson Bay. Lakes United is up against Souths, while Maitland confronts Cessnock. And it's also going to be huge right in round 16 in the NBN Soccer League on Saturday, with Cessnock to take on Belmont Swansea, and on Sunday, Toronto is up against Broadmeadow, while East Maitland are up against the South Cardiff Gunners. Also, Highfields are up against Hamilton, Abbottstown are up against Wallsend, and Western up against Edgeworth. Connor Glenn McLeod, NBN News.
The Newcastle Wildfires, we're all hoping to secure a win. With tries scored, the Wildfires managed to score a whole lot of them, despite having a player sent to the bin for starting a brawl. The Newcastle had everyone on their feet, then suddenly moments later, one of the Wildfires players was subbing for punching a rival club player, which then later erupted into another brawl. Despite the aggressive behavior of their players, the Wildfires managed to win the game. Mr. Crash, NBN News.
Like you can South Newcastle were right at their own hands in Newcastle Rugby League today. Like scored first, then continued on, despite a few punches thrown both teams had players sent to the garbage dumpster for fighting. Then South Newcastle scored next. Then Lakes eventually scored plenty more and won the game. Squidward tentacles and being nose.
The Chief, of course, may have retired from rugby league, but thankfully, sports journalism is the one good thing that he's into. As part of his new career, he's officially joined our NBN news team as part of his segment, The Word from the Chief, which of course has NRL clubs that he tips to win. Also, the Chief is hoping to quickly, is hoping to get his good skills onto the best line with his tipping, right when our bulletins come on when the sport. Also, he teams up with his mate, our sports presenter, Mike Rabic. Meanwhile, the Knights are on a week off, and of course the Chief has tipped Brisbane to beat the Warriors, Canterbury to thrash Melbourne, Cronulla to officially dismantle Canberra, Manly to defeat Western Suburbs, Parramatta to beat North Queensland, and South Sydney to defeat Balmain. Also, St George Illawarra to defeat Penrith, and Sydney City to defeat the North Sydney Bears. The Chief was on good smiles. The Chief was in good smiles this morning. Despite retiring from rugby league last month due to injury, Harrigan, of course, has since become part of the NBN News sports team as a rugby league analysis. Also, his segment, The Word from the Chief, has become popular.
Coming up to your 300th show, so a new capsule, nice shovel with 300 big letters there, so that's fantastic.
Also, he was right up in a studio with John Laws this morning. The Chief was of course dressed as smart, and also choosing the teams that he'll pick during this round of the NRL. Also, he's chosen the teams to win, and also it's part of the most important plan. Meanwhile, the Knights return after a week off. And of course, the Broncos have got the had a victory over the Panthers. And of course, the Chief has officially tipped for Newcastle to beat Penrith, while the Sharks is what he's also gone for to beat Auckland, and he's also gone for St George Illawarra to beat Balmain, and also the Melbourne Storm to beat Canberra, and Canterbury to beat North Queensland. Brisbane to beat South Sydney, and also Parramatta to beat West, Manly versus the North Sydney Bears, while Sydney City have to bye.
Despite beating the Magpies, it was huge for the Knights, who now have the good week as well as the 5 days off. The Knights also managed to beat the North Sydney Bears. Meanwhile, Mitty makes his return after being off for a few weeks due to injury. Mitty's is also good for Newcastle, following their win over Penrith. Well, Danny Boudris is on number 9, and Steve Simpson is on reserve. Not only have the Knights been worried about Mitty's injury problem, but Coach Warren Ryan is too. Mitty's is also good for Newcastle, following their win over Penrith. They're hoping that injuries like this do not happen again. SpongeBob SquarePants and NBN News.
The Newcastle Flyers had to secure a win and see their enemies the rugby union match today. And they certainly did just that this afternoon, taking them down with a huge victory in the period correct NBNAs.
The Knights were in good training mode ahead of their next game, but however, they have not had players on the ground, not just yet, because of injury. Meanwhile, Adam MacDougall was also injured and is getting ready to come back after told that he was injury-free. But thankfully, the one who caught Warren Ryan got a great smile from was Andrew Johns after he managed to recover from an injury he suffered during their win over the Panthers. The Knights and the National Rugby League are all hoping that injuries don't ever happen again. Otherwise, it will end your career, Mrs. Puff, and be in news.
The Knights had to do a lot of training this afternoon. Ahead of tonight's game. there will be no juries on the field tonight. Coach Warren is hoping that everything will go according to plan. Sandy Cheeks, NBN News.
Beautiful ball of Bucks. Nice cutout pass to Hughes. This play's scoring a lot of tries at the moment, so it's a good try to Newcastle.
CSKA had to beat Toronto in the Newcastle Rugby League last night. Then minutes later, CSKA scored more tries and the match winner.
Leeds United were up against arch enemies Ward on Mayfield in the Newcastle Rugby League today. Moments later they back-chatted, and they got players sent to the bin. Meanwhile, seconds later, it was on again. Despite this, Warwick Mayfield managed to score more and win the game. The Flying Dutchman and the English and the Finn.
The Maitland Pumpkin Pickers needed some kind of a comeback to beat Western Suburbs. So too did Waratah Mayfield. Meantime, the Newcastle Rugby League ladder has, of course, the last 4 teams in the top for the finals, such as Western Suburbs up the top, while Lakes United and Cessnock are, of course, tied for 27th, while Curry is on 26 and is in 4th. Meanwhile, Waratah and Souths are both on 18 points. And of course, both sides will be doing their best this weekend. And of course, Maitland had a player sent off for doing this. Meanwhile, in Group 21 Rugby League, Scone defeated Denman, Corindi defeated Aberdeen, and Muswellbrook drew with Singleton 14 all. Conley McLeod, NBN News. It's not usually every day that you see an up-and-coming Knights player have an interview. But however, he started playing rugby league at a young age. Then started playing for the Knights Jersey Flag Cup side. Since then, he's become the next big thing. And playing at home games as well. Not only just that, he's also scored tries, both for the Knights, as well as supporting for New South Wales in the Under-19 State of Origin. That's all onto his good list. Conley McLeod, NBN News. Wet weather may put everything on hold, but that doesn't stop anything from happening inside. as the students up at a Hunter High School were quickly told everything about sports.
The agent then has to go out and work hard because he gets no money at all unless you get a lot of money.
Also, it was just one of those days for one of their own. Meantime, the Hunter Festival of Sport has been cancelled due to wet weather, and also there were due to be a lot of there was due to be everything from teams from tennis playing up at the district park to touch football up at the Harness Racing Club and an Aussie Rules clinic up at the #1 sports ground. Also, the Club Phoenix up at Mayfield Sports Day. Also, which has been confirmed at the Hunter Festival of Sport, is basketball up at the Broadmeadow Stadium, netball up at Charlestown, and the singles of tennis up at District Park. However, thankfully, just like whatever they say, the show must go on. Connor Glenn McLeod, NBN News. The Newcastle Wildfires are all but hoping to have a finals win, but also a place in the finals. With a lot of victories, but also only a couple of heartbreaking losses, it's of course the last straw for Newcastle to secure a finals berth spot, because one loss and they're out. Meantime, in Newcastle Rugby Union, the Wanderers are up against Merewether, while Singleton plays Maitland. The Waratahs are up against Eastern Districts, and Hamilton are up against University. Meantime, in the Newcastle Rugby League competition, North Nelson Bay are up against Macquarie on Saturday, while Curry is up against Souths, which is the match of the round. Also, Maitland is up against West, and on Sunday, Central Charlestown is up against Cessnock, while Lakes United is home to Waratah Mayfield. And in the NBN Soccer League, Western is hosting Wallsend on Saturday, while Cessnock is hosting Broadmeadow on Sunday, while Adamstown is hosting the South Cardiff Gunners. Also, Toronto is up against Hamilton, East Maitland is up against Highfields, and Belmont Swansea is up against Edgeworth. Connor Glenn McLeod, NBN News. The Wildfires are hoping to have a win, and of course, they needed one so badly. Despite having few in the bin, a victory had to be put onto a good spirit. Meantime, in the Newcastle competition, only 2 games will be played this weekend. Singleton will play against University up at Singleton High School, while Maitland will play against the Waratahs up at Marcelin Park, while the matches between the Wanderers in Hamilton and Eastern Districts and Merewether have been postponed due to the wet weather. Also, round 17 of the Tooheys Cup Newcastle Rugby League has also been affected. Meanwhile, Waratah Mayfield is up against Waratah Mayfield is up against Nelson Bay. Meanwhile, Waratah Mayfield is up against their rivals up at Anna Bay, while Cessnock is up against Curry up at Cessnock Sports Ground. Meanwhile, the matches between West versus Lakes and Macquarie versus Central Charlestown have been postponed until at least Tuesday and Wednesday. And more postponements have come in the NBN Soccer League's Round 17 competition. It's up is up between the South Cardiff WeatherTech Gunners versus Toronto Wobber, Hamilton Olympic and East Maitland, Wallsend and Cessnock. But however, only 3 games will be played this weekend. And it's Belmont Swansea versus the Western Workers and Broadmeadow versus Adamstown, while on Sunday, Edgeworth are up against the Highfields. Conklin McLeod, NBN News.
Newcastle has not had a basketball team in the National Basketball League since the Falcons were forced to leave the competition 2 months ago. It's been really tough for Newcastle, who had failed to raise the money to play for the upcoming. Without any names, the Falcons had no choice but to disband them. Are now new plans to bring basketball back. The new look new basketball team will be announced on William Johnson.
Cessnock were up against rivals Cully, the Newcastle Rugby League today. And of course, both teams scored tries. Even though Cully eventually won the game, the match was, of course, good. Cessnock had to quickly score before everything went from bad to worse. Conklin McLeod, NBN News. Both West and Lakes United are of course no strangers of meeting each other in the Newcastle Rugby League. And of course they had to have a match right on tonight. Lakes scored first. Then they had to do the same exactly again before West struck back. Then a brawl broke out. Both players from both sides were sent to the bin and West eventually scored. And West eventually scored back. Just in time. Then Lakes United scored before West secured a victory with this match winner. Meanwhile, West remaining first on top of the Newcastle Rugby League Tooheys Cup Premiership. Now it's 26 points for West, while both Lakes and Cessnock remain on tied for 25th, which is both second and third. Meanwhile, Curry is in fourth with 24 points, while Souths, Waratah and Maitland are tied for 18 points. Now, here's the word from the chief.
Well, round 21, and it's been a big week again in Rugby League. 2 players, Graham Langlands and Wally Lewis, have been inducted to the Rugby League Hall of Fame, the Immortals. Graham Langans was one of the best players to play the game and was probably unlucky not to be there in the first place. And Wally Lewis has been New South Wales' nemesis since the start of State of Origin. And certainly a great honour for these two legends of the game to be included as one of the 6 best players ever to play the game. Well, a lot of people are tipping St George Illawarra to take out the premiership this year. But on the other hand, the Brisbane Broncos' form of late has been superb. They are playing at home, and that fight for survival to make the semi-finals will make them too strong. I've tipped them tonight in a very, very close match. Well, on to other matches of the round, and certainly Sharks and Melbourne will be a great match. Melbourne are in tremendous form, and their game against Canberra last week, their first 20 minutes was some of the best rugby league that I've seen all year. On the other hand, the Sharks are playing at home, but I just don't think they're going to be up to standard this week. South Sydney versus Auckland, these two sides have massive forward packs. South Sydney are desperate to make sure they stay in the top 8, and that will ensure the victory, but this game is going to be a lot closer than you think. Well, there you have it. There's my tips for the round. We had a great week last week. Let's see if we can do the same again.
Souths and Maitland know exactly what to do right up in Newcastle Rugby League. It's of course playing rugby league at its die-hard best. And that's what they did over the weekend. Souths and Maitland know exactly what to do right up in Newcastle Rugby League. It's of course playing rugby league at its die-hard best. And that's what they did over the weekend.
That type of player, it just seems to be all in a bit of momentum.
Despite training, the Knights had a really good go with their rivals, and so too did Warren Ryan. The Knights still have a good chance of going through to the finals this year. Because of that, Tony Butterfield will return. Since debuting back in 1988, the Knights have become more of a team. They've become a huge name up in Newcastle. And of course, Tony Butterfield has confirmed that he'll play one more year at the club. Meanwhile, Andrew Johns was also up at training, despite an injury that he suffered during the Knights' win over the Panthers. Meanwhile, the Knights have named their squad. That included O'Davis, Moody, Craigie, Hughes, McDougall, the Johns brothers, Matthew and Andrew. Also Butterfield, Badiris, O'Brien, Fletcher, Rudder and Peden. The Wildfires had to quickly play, and of course, they had to keep their finals campaign alive to quickly secure a win in a game that occurred this afternoon. And of course, it was going everywhere. Meantime, in the Newcastle Rugby Union, the Wanderers are up against the Waratahs, while University of Newcastle are up against Merewether, and Maitland is up against Hamilton, and East are up against Singleton. And in the NBN Soccer League, Highfield's up against Toronto Wobber on Saturday, while on Sunday, Edgeworth are up against East Maitland, Hamilton plays Adamstown, while the South Cardiff Gunners are up against Cessnock. Also, Broadmeadow are up against Western, and Wallsend are up against Belmont Swansea. Conklin McLeod, NBN News.
Newcastle is famous such as local soccer and local hockey as well. But today, the girls at the Newcastle International Hockey Centre had to go today. As it was time to promote the upcoming games.
The Nuts! Still training hard ahead of this weekend's game. We're all smiles today after their victory last week. Coach Moran has named an unchanged lineup ahead of the match, which is on Sunday. Also, Steve Simpson makes his first grade debut. The Knights are hoping to beat their arch rivals on Sunday, with the finals just 2 months away. Sandy Cheeks, NBN News.
The Breakers had a better start to the season, but sadly they didn't go through to the finals. Since then, it's been a lot of training in the off-season for the club. We're hoping that next season will be theirs. Also, there are new signings, as well as new arrivals. The Breakers season starts in October. Mr. Krabs, NBN News.
Now, here's a word from the chief. Knights were in good form, right in their training skills, but despite coming back from injury, it was Andrew Johns' time to come back. Meanwhile, the Knights squad has officially been named as part of the clash against South Sydney. O. Davis, Moody, Gidley, Hughes, McDougall, Matthew Johns and Andrew Johns have been named. Also, Butterfield, Badiris, O'Brien, Conley, Rudder and Peden have been named as well, while Steve Simpson is on the reserves, while Owen Craigie is also on the reserves due to injury. Ryan knows exactly a lot about what happens to players, especially Andrew Johns, when tackles threaten to end someone's career. But thankfully in training, it all went different today as part of their match against South Sydney. Conley McLeod, NBN News. Now it's time for the word from the Chief. The Newcastle Rugby League Awards of 1999 were honoured, and of course, they were named. Meanwhile, in the Newcastle Rugby League honours list, the player's player went to Brett Clements for Curry Curry. Also, Derek McVeigh for Cessnock was Coach of the Year, and the leading point scorer was Steve Sawley from Maitland. Despite a good recovery, That's what the Knights and also their players Andrew Johns had on their good mind. It was part of their clash with Brisbane this week. The Knights are hoping to beat the Broncos this week. Next up, Newcastle plays Sydney City. The last time those two sides met was back in 1997. Conklin McLeod, NBN News. The Newcastle Wildfires had to quickly start right up on home turf. They had to play up at the Knights Marathon Stadium today as well. Meantime, in the Newcastle Rugby Union, Singleton is up against the Wanderers, while Maitland plays Merweather Carlton. Also, Waratah is up against University of Newcastle, and Hamilton is up against Eastern Districts. Both West and Cessnock were playing against each other in the Newcastle Rugby League. Also, Cessnock scored first and eventually continued on right throughout the game. Then West eventually scored. Before Cessnock stopped them in their tracks. Meantime, another game was played. This time, it was up against Curry Curry and the unhinged Lakes United. First, Lakes scored. Then, it all continued. With Lakes United securing a win. Conklin McLeod, NBN News.
Australia were up against Rivers New Zealand in a rugby union match overnight. Despite losing, Australia managed to score a couple of tries, but not enough to win. The Newcastle Knights know a lot about tackling. But that will all change as part of Sunday's game at home. But thankfully, Coach Warren Wright knows that his boys are ready for the game, which kicks off in a few days' time.
Paul Rahihi. The Jamie Fitzgerald. Clinton O'Brien.
Whatever goes on Sunday, but behavior such as using foul language is not acceptable and should not be on. Mr. Crash, NBN News. The Newcastle Knights had a win against their rivals over the weekend, but thankfully no injuries came in during the victory.
Top of the shoulder, caught him flush. Did pretty well to get up and play the football. Very shaky. Top of the shoulder, caught him flush. Did pretty well to get up and play the football.
The NBN Soccer League has another round this weekend. Which team wins will go through to the finals in 2 months' time. Well, there are home games this Saturday and Sunday. It's also time to start kicking the ball. Mr. Crash, NBN News. It's only 3 months till the Newcastle Breakers kick off their new season at Birmingham Gardens. Why, there are new players coming from other clubs. The Breakers coach is hoping that Newcastle can be in the finals. They need to do much better this season to make it to the finals of the National Soccer League. The Breakers season begins in early October. Mr. Krabs, NBN News.
The Knights have a lot of good skills in the rugby league, and it's a new action-oriented as well. They have since blamed various rival club players for injuring their players, as well as not having any good luck. But that will change when the Knights have a game on Friday heats. NBN News.
Maitland and Western Suburbs were at each other in the Newcastle Rugby League. And no, it's not about dirty playing or tactics. It's all about scoring tries. Thankfully, no foul words or any bad behavior occurred during the match. It was all Western Suburbs Day today, and because of it they managed to score more tries and win the match. Mr. Crash, NBN News.
Wow, there's tried to secure a winning rugby, you mean, yesterday afternoon. But sadly, they were defeated by their rivals, who beated them with work tentacles and NBN knows. Despite a cut down near his eye, Matthew Gibby is returning after a few weeks after to injury. But today, Gibby was okay as he arrived at training today, while Cock Warren Ryan is hoping that his recovery from injury is not a problem. Nice. Face the Tigers this Friday night. Squidward tentacles and NBN knows.
Australia are up against New Zealand right at the Newcastle Basketball Stadium at Broadmeadow. But this time, in a different type of sport called badminton. Also, Australia may need to beat New Zealand in badminton overnight. SpongeBob SquarePants and be a news.
It's running a rugby league time with the Knights. Tonight is they have a game. They have got every player from their squad. One changed since last weekend. They're hoping to beat their enemies. Newcastle is hoping that one will make their coach Warren Ryan happy, Sandy Cheeks. NBN News. Meet the Newcastle Hunters. They're the best basketball team in the World League.
Both leagues united in the blue and yellow. The Cessnock is in the black and yellow. Took on against each other today in the Newcastle Rugby League this afternoon. Thankfully, Cessnock won the game. Honey pickles and being news. The Newcastle Knights got straight off the bus this afternoon, just in time for the match of the round. Meanwhile, Danny Butterfield is hoping that the Knights can win the grand final. Beat 'em. Our sports high still managed to beat their rivals yesterday.
Let's slide right through the last night's gate before Cessnock managed to steal Lauren to win. The Cessnock Gun has won the match with the victorious winner, Chucky Finster, and the Hindus.
Larry Bell recovered from injury and thankfully he has just returned to the nicest part of the home game. The game starts on Sunday. Angelica Pickles and NBN News.
The recent round of the NBN Soccer League started over the weekend. As both Edgeworth and Hayfields have a game to play. But thankfully Edgeworth won after securing the 3-1 win. Chucky Finster and the News.
Cessnock had to beat their rivals today in the Newcastle Rugby League. It was who for Cessnock who managed to secure a win. Meanwhile, Curry were up against Lakes United. Good news came for Curry. They won the game after scoring more tries. Grandpa Low Pickles and NBN News.
After the break, we'll have the sporting highlights from August 1999.
I'm gonna buy that. Into big business now, are we? Nope. I'm quite happy with the small business I own, Louise.
Who are you banking with now, Bob?
Newcastle Permanent.
No, I mean your company banking.
Yeah, we're with the firm.
Didn't know they did business banking?
Well, I have done for quite some time now, Dad.
Oh, good move.
That's mine. Thank you.
Your business is in good hands with Newcastle Permanent.
They're our booming society.
The big red ball, from the bush to the bay. Yes, it's Lotto. Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. It's the big one you want. It's the game for you. 'Cause it's the big red ball that makes dreams come true. Dreams come true. Dreams come true. The big red ball. The big red ball. It's the big red ball that makes dreams come true.
Wake up in the morning, gotta get the Cause the Herald is the best way to start your day.